The last time I was behind the wheel of one of these, the new MG Astor, it was at India's sole F1 circuit, the BIC. We were given a couple of laps and a free rein to throw the Astor around at the Buddha International Circuit. But snap back to reality, and this is where all the Astors bought will be spending all their lives, the real world. So it's only logical to spend some more time with the Astor and gauge its practicality and performance in the real world. So let's quickly get behind the wheel and see what all the fuss is about. When it was introduced in India, we expected the Astor to get a petrol and a diesel engine option. But MG decided otherwise. You can get the Astor with a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated petrol engine, which is paired to a 5-speed manual, or you can have it with a CVT transmission as well. And the other engine option is this, the 1.3 litre or 1.4 litre, because it's 1349cc, so call it what you want. It's a turbo petrol engine and it's available with a 6-speed torque converter. It's the only gearbox option though. MG likes to call this engine 220 turbo because of the 220 Nm of torque it produces. This engine is also available internationally with almost up to 160 horsepower. But here in India, you get 138 bhp, which is available higher in the rev range at around 5600 rpm. So start up the engine and it settles into a fairly silent idle. You do, however, know that the engine is running in the background owing to these little vibration on the steering and on the pedals. Now get going and these vibrations almost disappear at lower revs and city speeds. And it's almost as silent as its electric cousin, the ZS EV, which only tells you how good the insulation is. But as the rev starts to climb and it goes to the meat of the power band, it does get noisier. For instance, so you can hear the engine at around 4000 rpm. When driving in the city, there's a good amount of grunt available below 2000 rpm. It's got a linear delivery and you never know when the turbo has already spooled up. In a typical turbocharged engine fashion, the mid-range is strong and it comes in handy when there's a need to go for that gap in the traffic. There's barely any delay and even the gearbox complements the relaxed yet responsive nature of the engine. Talking about the gearbox, this torque converter automatic is smooth during upshifts and there are no unnecessary jerks when driving sedately. Out on the highway, the motor could be revving around 2000 rpm for triple-digit speeds, and there's only a need for a quick dab on the throttle to overtake slow-moving traffic. Now there's no drive modes here, but you do get this sport mode on the gear stick with the provision of a manual shifting. No pedal shifters are offered here. In the sport mode, the revs climb quickly and the automatic holds the gear for a little longer, which lends an aggressive response to the engine. Give it some beans and the revs climb seamlessly to the red line. But there's no real need for it because the motor it runs out of steam past 4000 rpm. So it's better to use the strong mid-range when there's a real need for some spirited driving. We tested using the V-Box and the Astor clocked the 0 to 100 km/h sprint in an impressive 9.3 seconds, which is quite on par with its direct rivals. More importantly, the roll-on acceleration from 20 kmph to 80 kmph took 5.53 seconds, which highlights the mid-range grunt of this turbocharged motor. Even the 40 to 100 kmph acceleration was achieved in fairly quick 7.93 seconds. So be it pottering around in traffic or out cruising on the highway, the Astor manages to be comfortable and easy to drive. Now the MG Astor, it has disc brakes on all 4 sides, which in this segment is still a very rare sight. The brake pedal, it has good initial bite and a progressive feel through and through. Now tipping the scale almost close to 1380 kgs, the Astor isn't a light car. But the brakes, it helps it stop from 100 km per hour to a standstill in an impressive 3.22 seconds within 45 meters. Despite repeated usage or even driving it all day, there's little to no fade from the brakes, and that's a really good thing because it offers automatic braking as part of its ADAS, that's ADAS hardware. Talking about the autonomous hardware, most of this level 2 system can be activated on highways where it can change speed depending on the road signs. It can de-accelerate when the car ahead of you is braking and assist in keeping the lanes where the white road markings are clearly visible. It worked brilliantly 8 out of 10 times we tried it, and that's good enough for car in this segment and at this price. Now when MG introduced the Astor sans a diesel engine, we were a bit skeptical because they were pitching this 1.3 litre turbo petrol as an alternative to the oil burner. Sure, there's a good amount of torque that won't let you miss the diesel engine, but there's one factor that will surely do. It's the fuel efficiency. In a tested fuel efficiency run, the Astor returned 8.7 kilometers to the litre in the city and 14.8 kilometers per litre on the highway. We know the turbo petrol engines are a bit temperamental and sometimes very sensitive, but this motor isn't as frugal as MG would have wanted it to be. Now the Astor is a comfortable runabout and there's no two way about it. But behind the steering wheel, it's not equally involving. And talking about steering wheel, there are 3 settings for this steering. But it doesn't help the fact that the steering feel in the Astor is a bit electronic. It feels light and vague off the center at slower speeds. And when thrown around with some enthusiasm, it doesn't have that connected feel to inspire you to push harder. Whether you're sitting in the front or rear seats, we found the ride quality of the Astor to be quite comfortable over most of the road surfaces. It absorbs bumps and irregularities at slower speeds quite well, but there are some vertical motions over undulations when the speed increases. Overall, it's better to enjoy the Astor with sedate driving and relaxed cruise, be it in and around the town or on cross-country journeys. So what the MG Astor is in a real sense, a proper family SUV that's practical, it looks good and has loads and loads of features. It might not be dynamically engaging, and that engine is far from frugal and it's not as refined as its counterparts. That said, the MG Astor does have a few aces up its sleeves. The first in segment autonomous hardware, for instance. So you don't buy the MG Astor for its driving credentials. You buy it because of its eye-catching looks. You buy it for its value proposition and, of course, the comfort that it offers.